Hi, Dipika. Welcome to the Autonomy podcast. I'm really happy and excited to have you here today on the call. How are you doing?
Good. It's really cold in Chicago this weekend, so trying to keep warm. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your weekend to make this work. Really happy to have you today on the call.
Happy to be here.
Awesome. So let's jump into it. How did you get to come across Autonomy? How did you find us?
Through Instagram, your reels keep popping up, and Nathan was like, "Oh, this little white guy trying to teach Indians how to lose weight," and I was like, "Oh, this seems cool." And then they kept popping up repeatedly, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is cool." He had some good stuff, so I started following, and then the reels kept in my page kept coming up, and then started paying attention a little bit more.
Yeah, that's awesome, Dipika. Yeah, that's great. What caught your attention about Nathan's post? Yeah, this is something I want to explore.
It was relatable. I didn't have to cut out the food. I could still eat the food that I grew up eating at home. My mom's cooking. I didn't have to give it all up. That's what caught me the most.
The traditional, you mean the traditional Indian food that you eat daily, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. And what have you struggled with before joining Autonomy? What did you feel your struggle were?
I think my main struggle was having a balanced meal and portion sizes. Those were my two biggest things.
And have you tried anything in the past, before joining Autonomy?
No, not really.
Okay. So you felt you've been struggling with portion control all your life, and you didn't basically have knowledge on how much portion should I have, what should I have on my plate?
Yeah, since I was a kid, it was my mom would here's the food, eat what you want, right? And then it was always you got to finish your plate. So it was overeating, even if I was full, my mom was no, you got to finish your food. You can't waste it, right? So then that mentality kept throughout my entire life. And then it just came to a point where okay, I know I'm not eating right, but I don't know how to fix it. And that's where I need the help.
And what was the moment for you, Dipika, to decide to do something?
2023, I got COVID and my lungs never recovered.
I'm sorry to hear
to
that.
the point where, it was a bad year for me.
Oh.
To the point where, the symptoms went away, but my lungs never recovered. So then I was having a hard time breathing. And so my body was just holding on to everything because it thought it was dying, because it went into fight or flight response. And then, so I was just from July to September, I packed on 40 pounds. And I started, I got to my doctor in September, and it was early November by the time we figured out okay, this is why she can't breathe. I got pulmonary function tests, I was on medication, I was on an inhaler, and I was 160 pounds by this point. And I was my back started hurting because my body wasn't accustomed to that much weight. So then I started going to PT. So I was this isn't gonna work, right? Started going to PT for my back, and then I started because I couldn't even walk up a flight of stairs without gasping for air, or I couldn't even hold a conversation, a simple conversation right now. I would stop to gasp for air every 2 words or something. It was that bad. I finished PT, and then I was okay, now I need to do something about the weight, and that's when I joined Autonomy.
All right, that's awesome. And what did you feel Autonomy added for you so far throughout this journey?
It added knowledge, it added accountability, it added encouragement. It kind of
Did you feel you lacked those before?
Not that I necessarily lacked it, but it was, I mainly joined Autonomy because I like the idea of having someone teach me how to eat food and make it balanced and portion controls and still lose the weight in a healthy way, right? And so that's what I was missing, and that's what Autonomy provided.
So you felt the trigger moment for you to change and do something was your struggle with your COVID journey and the weight that you have gained throughout that time frame. Is that right? How did that make you feel when you were 160 pounds before joining? And what did you feel that urge of or motivation that, I need to do something about that?
It was now or never. If I don't make the time for my health now, I will have to make time for the illness later on. So it's either get healthy or get ill, but either way, I'm going to have to make time for it. So which one do I want to make time for? So I chose the healthy option.
Absolutely. And why did you feel this was the right time for you to make that decision?
Why not now? Why wait? What's the benefit of waiting? So the sooner you start, the better.
Exactly. Yeah, that's awesome. And you mentioned that before starting with Autonomy, you were at 160 pounds, correct? And throughout this journey now, how much do you weigh right now?
120.
Wow, that's awesome. So we lost 40 pounds, Dipika.
Yeah,
wow, that's
been
great.
a really good thing.
Yeah, and you've started back in October, right? Or September?
No, I started last year in June, yeah.
In June. Okay. So you've been now almost 6 months, 7 months into this journey.
Yep.
How do you feel? How are you feeling so far?
I feel amazing. It's not only like a self-confidence boost, like you look great, right? Like I was like 125 at my wedding. I am skinnier than I was at my wedding now. All the clothes that I kept in my closet, like, okay, I'll fit into that when I lose the weight. All those clothes are too big now. My wedding rings are too big. They keep sliding off.
Wow. You need to change them. Tell your husband, right?
It's like, I need a new ring now.
Yeah. I have to show the commitment.
Yeah, so it's a great feeling. I have more energy. I'm working out now. Like I'm not gasping for air. I can make it up a flight of stairs. Okay. And I'm not dying. So it's great. It's been like a complete 180 turnaround.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm so happy for you, Dipika. Tell me a bit about when throughout this journey, since you started since June now, so you were through the Diwali season, the festivities, the Christmas break, the New Year's break. How was it like this year that the strategies that you got versus not having strategies? What changed to your approach to holiday season this year versus last year?
I knew how to not overindulge. Like I knew how to still have all the sweets and all the yummy stuff, but still be within my calorie deficit or like my meal plan. I knew how to fit things in, the ones that I wanted to eat. So I knew like I'm going to eat like...
There were a lot around Diwali.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Actually, this Diwali, I was in Texas because my sister had like a medical emergency. So it was kind of a sad time, but we had my favorite thing in the world is like, it's like an Indian dessert called fruit salad, which is just milk and sugar and fruit, but it's also calorie dense because there's a lot of sugar in there. But before, I would just eat it to my heart's content. But this year, I was still able to eat it to my heart's content without ruining my progress. I knew how much to eat, when to stop. It was nice.
So you felt like you can still enjoy the things that you love the most without feeling guilty about it at the end of the day, right?
Yes, exactly.
Awesome. That's great. And what did you feel the strategies that was adopted by your coach Orjita to help you be on track throughout this journey? Like you lost like 40 pounds. That's massive. That's amazing. What kept you consistent? What did you feel the strategies were from your coach to keep you consistent throughout this journey so far?
She was very helpful in telling me like portion sizes for all the foods. Like fruit is 100 grams, dal is this much, like pasta is this much. And like, I'd be like, hey, I really want to eat this, but like, I don't know how to measure this out. So she was like, okay, like, let me get back to you. And the next day she's like, this is how much you're going to eat for this. And so in the beginning, it was a lot of like, Orjita, like, how much do I eat of this? I don't know how to measure it. Or like, even now, like last week, I was like, how do I measure soup? Like,
that's a dilemma.
Yeah. So, but it's like a learning progress where you never know everything, right? But I like that she was always there to answer all my questions. And the key point is I can ask her all the questions I want, but it's only going to work if I implement those things, right? So that was the key thing, asking questions and then implementing them in my routine. And that was, I think, the key thing to my success.
And how did you feel that built knowledge for you, that feedback or the information that you were getting from Orjita?
So in the beginning, I would literally like weigh everything out, use the little food scale, how many grams is it? And then slowly over time, I was able to like eyeball it at the right measurement, but I would still have the scale on just to make sure I got it right. But then it's kind of like, oh, like I don't really need a scale anymore. I know a handful of granola is 20 grams. Like, and that's where I think the autonomy part comes over. Like repetitive actions, and you kind of just become second nature at that point. And that's what's best.
Absolutely. So you feel like this is something that is sustainable, that you can actually keep doing for the rest of your life or for a very long time without going out of your way on going on those fitness trackers and entering your food. And it takes a lot of time, right?
Yeah, it's sustainable. And you kind of learned along the way how to gauge how much food you're eating or what a portion size is. Even if you're out of town and you don't have the scale, you can still stay on track, right? Because you can eyeball it now. And that's what I like. Like I don't need to rely on a scale as much anymore.
Awesome. That's great. So if you would summarize it in 3 methods or strategies that really worked for you with autonomy that you didn't know before joining, what were those methods?
Knowing how many calories to eat and how to divide them out throughout the day. So I'm vegetarian, so protein was like a huge thing for me. So knowing vegetarian protein options. And then I think basically the third thing was implementing all the guidance that Orjita gave me. Even if it was hard, like figure out a way to make it work. I said this to 𝐼𝐸𝐺'𝐵 once. The food that you're eating and the meals that you're making is only as hard as you make it. If you want to figure out a way, you will find a way to make the food work. So if you're overcomplicating it, I think that's where people trip up and they're like, oh, I can't keep up with this. But the more you simplify it and you're like, okay, these are the 3 proteins I have this week and these are the vegetables, and then you figure out a meal plan that way, it makes it a lot easier. It's a lot less overwhelming.
Absolutely. Yeah. So you felt like, all of this knowledge or feedback that you've been getting added to your knowledge and to your understanding of how to approach a meal plan or a weight loss phase, or even like, portioning your food on a plate.
Yep.
Awesome. Any other strategies like you felt like, oh, I didn't know about that before, and like, you kind of discovered that with Autonomy?
With Autonomy, I learned what a balanced meal was, like how much vegetables I need, how much protein I need, how much carbs and fat I need. Before, it was like the wild, wild west, like just threw everything on a plate, whatever there was, But now there's like a structure to a meal. Like I know how to make a meal at dinner and be happy with it and be enough to be full, but not to the point where like, oh my God, I'm in a food coma.
Absolutely. And what helped you stay consistent throughout this whole journey now, Dipika? Now, we've been now with Autonomy for 6 months with a fat loss phase. There's good days, there's bad days, there's ups and downs. It's a journey. So what felt that kept you consistent throughout this whole time?
The fact that I wanted to be 80 and not like be in danger of breaking a hip when I fall. Like I wanted to be strong, and that's the goal. I wanted to be strong and independent and capable even when I'm like 80, 90 years old. And that was the motivation.
Did that like something that like made you wake up every day wanting to achieve, like a motivation that was daily, like, you were thinking about?
Yep. It was like, if I want to be 80 and not want like a cane, this is what I got to do. So that's what woke me up and got me out of bed in the gym every day.
That's awesome. I love it. And how do you feel right now being at 120 pounds versus when you were at 160 pounds before you started? What changed for you now as a person?
Like when you look at yourself in the mirror, I don't feel like, oh my gosh, like I'm like so unhealthy, or like I don't see, everyone has flaws, but I don't see the flaws anymore. I see the progress that I made. I saw how far I've come from 160 to 120 pounds. So I see more positive. My thought process changed from a more negative aspect to a more positive aspect.
That's awesome. And did you feel having that journey got you that mindset, or was it built in like from before? Like, you had that mindset, you just needed the guidance?
No, I think it was Autonomy that more helped, because it was always like, if my weight went up one day and then I was like, where'd you thought like the scale went up? And she's like, it's fine. It's okay. Like it'll fluctuate. And so that positive feedback changed my mentality. Like I didn't know it at the time, but if I look over the past 6 months, I'll notice that like, oh, my thought, like my thinking did change. It's more positive now. Like I don't freak out if the weight goes up. I don't freak out if I had like 2 pieces of chocolate, because I know it's okay. Like it fits in with my calories, right? It was a slow progress, but we got there.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really great to hear. And how did you feel like, when the weight fluctuated, how did you feel that feedback that you got from your coach to help you overcome that, like, stay on track on the following days?
It was a lot of trust in her, like that she knew what she was talking about, that even if I saw the scale go up, in the grand scheme of things, the weight is still coming off, even though in this moment in time, it might be a little higher than it was yesterday. I trusted her and I took her word for it. And I was like, if she's not worried about it, I'm not worried about it, and we're going to move on.
That's awesome. That's really great to hear, Dipika. That's awesome to hear. So yeah, let me ask you this as well. Like, what have you felt changed for you when you look at yourself in the mirror now versus before starting Autonomy? Now you are at around 120 pounds, which is almost like that was the same weight when you got married. When did you get married?
I got married in 2019.
Wow. So that's like 6 years ago now.
Yeah.
So do you feel the similarities now? Yeah, almost 5, 6.
So to be honest, even when I was at 125 pounds, my body measurements were smaller than they were when I was 125 in 2019. So that feeling alone is phenomenal. Like the dopamine rush of realizing that your measurements are smaller than they were 5 years ago is insane. Like there's no synthetic supplement for that, right? So the feeling is great. The mentality is great. You just feel good. You're just happier. And it's not because like I'm skinnier. I'm happy. Like I was happy when I was 160 also. I just was unhealthy. So now I'm healthy and happy. And what else?
I think those are good enough. Right?
Yeah.
Love it, Dipika. So what happens like when you see people who you haven't seen in a while? What is like their first look to you, or like their first comment? Like I'm really interested to know that.
Well, so I went to my cousin's baby shower and his grandma didn't recognize me.
Wow. That's crazy.
She went to my aunt and she's like, who's that girl that just said hi to me?
I love it.
So that was really nice. It's like an ego boost when someone sees you and they compliment you and they're like, oh my God, you lost a lot of weight. Like, you look great. And I was like, yeah, thank you. I worked really hard for it.
And you come a long way. You have to celebrate that. You absolutely have the right to celebrate that.
Thank you. Every day is a celebration.
Absolutely. Always take the wins, takes the positives from every day we live on this earth. That's great. Yep. All right. Okay, Dipika. So what are 3 tips or advice that you would give to anyone who is starting this journey or starting on a weight loss journey?
3 tips that I would give. You have to have your whole heart in it. Give it 110%. You will see the results. Number 2, if you don't want to go to the gym, still go to the gym because that's when you're going to see the progress. Number 3, don't make the food so complicated. Keep it simple. I think those are the 3 things I would say.
That is awesome. I love it. I love every tip of those. And did you feel like those also worked for you when you started, like based on personal experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially on my fasting days. I usually go to the gym in the morning and I get it out first thing in the day. But when I'm fasting, I go after sunset. And the last thing I want to do after work is go to the gym. But I'm like forcing myself to go to the gym because I know that's when it makes the difference, right? When you don't want to go and you do it, that's the biggest impact it's going to have. You're not going to get the progress if you don't put in the work.
Absolutely. That's 100% true. What is your goal now, Dipika? Like, what do you want to achieve at the end of this journey?
So I can finally see my thighs for the first time in my life. I want like a 6-pack. So
love the goal. Go to the next level.
Yeah, got a little bit more work to do. But I want to come away with my time with Autonomy to be as strong as possible and as healthy as possible. Those are my 2 main things. I mean, that's all I can ask for.
That's absolutely fantastic. And I love that you're pushing your mentality and mindset to that next level. So let me ask you this, like, you mentioned like wanting to have 6 packs. Was that even a thought before starting this program or like, when you were at 160 pounds?
No, I thought it would be impossible. That was like the shooting for the moon. I didn't even think it would be possible to get as far as I did or see the amount of change in my body that I did. It's insane. Like, I sent the progress photo to my parents and they were like, holy cow, like, this is insane. My mom's like, you worked really hard. I was like, yeah, I know. It was a lot of commitment.
I love it. And I love that you're taking it to the next level. And now you see like, okay, a 6-pack is a possibility. I can go that. I can break that next barrier and go for it, right?
Yep, exactly. Nothing can stop you now.
Absolutely. I love that. And that's the mindset that you want to have in anything you do in life. It's crazy what a human being is capable of doing and how our mindset sometimes limits us from doing those nice things that we want. Is that right?
Definitely pushing your boundaries and knowing that you're capable of more than you thought you were. I think that's the biggest takeaway. That Autonomy, it makes you realize that you can achieve more than you thought you could.
That's absolutely fantastic. And how did you feel your family were with you throughout this journey? Like, throughout the 6 months, like how was their support? How was like, the family situation at home? I know like, sometimes when we are on a diet, it gets like, oh, I'm going to have to eat my own food. Oh, like, I have to prepare and weigh my own food and not eating with the family. How was that for you throughout this journey? And how did you handle that?
It wasn't too bad, actually. My husband started eating the same meals I do. So it wasn't like we had to create 2 separate meals every day, which was nice. In the beginning, he was like so many salads. I was like, you need vegetables. Like, how else are we going to get them in there, right? So he was like on board, with the meals. And then when I was in Texas with my parents and my sister, like my parents, they started the meal plan also. So they were eating the same things I was. And my mom actually lost, I think, 10 pounds in like the 2 months that we were
Wow. You became her coach, Dipika. Wow, that's awesome.
So she's like, this is great. I'm going to keep it up when I go home.
That's fantastic. So you felt like you had this influence on your family to actually making them do those better choices with you as well.
Yeah, it's I think it wasn't just a transformation for me. I think my entire family came along for the ride and they went through a transformation also. Like, my husband and I are eating better. My parents are eating better. My dad started working out, like his blood pressure dropped, like he doesn't have to go on blood pressure medication anymore. So I think I got the ball rolling, but then it like really became a family thing. It was a nice journey for all of us. It still is a nice journey for all of us.
That's awesome. Like you started all this, Deepika, like, we're starting this journey and now you
Yeah.
had that influence on the rest of the family. And do you feel like this is something or a mindset that is only momentary, or do you feel like this is going to carry on with you guys for the rest of your life?
It'll carry on, definitely, because I don't want to go back to not being able to go up a flight of stairs and be 160 pounds and have back pain. Like, that's not someplace I want to go back. So this will definitely be like a lifelong thing.
That's awesome. That's really great. My last question to you is, how were you able to build those habits, or like, introduce those habits into your lifestyle, going with autonomy and start something? Sometimes it's like, overwhelming, like, steps, food, exercise. How did you feel autonomy helped you ease yourself into those without being overwhelmed?
For me, it was everything kind of happened all at once. So I always went to the gym. So that kind of wasn't a change in the routine. When I was doing physical therapy, I needed to start walking more instead of sitting, because I have a desk job. So I sit all day. That kind of made my psoas muscles really tight. And to prevent that, like, you have to stand and walk. So I got a walking pad. So I would walk while I was working. And then I joined Autonomy when I finished PT, because I had Autonomy in my mind, I think, from January up until like June when I started. And then really in, I think, about April, I was like, okay, like, I'm going to start Autonomy after I finish PT. So I was already doing the gym. I was already walking on the walking pad, getting 10,000 steps. At that point, I didn't really keep track of how many steps I was going, but I was like I had the habit already formed of like walking. And then with Autonomy, the final piece I was missing is the food. And that's where they came in and helped me out the most.
I think you did really great, Deepika. So yeah, anything else you want to share about your journey, about how you're feeling, about like anything?
I think it's an investment in yourself. That's how you have to think of it. And it's also a very expensive investment, because I need a new closet now, a whole new wardrobe. But it's worthwhile. I'm very happy with my decision to join Autonomy. And now I've got my husband with me doing it. I've got my family doing it. It's become a whole family thing now. And I love it. Like, I wouldn't have done it any other way.
That's lovely to hear. And we love having you as well with Autonomy, Deepika. And we're really proud of you and proud of your achievements so far. And yeah, we want to get you to those 6-packs. We're going to have to do another podcast when you get to those 6-packs. It's like, yeah, that's that's next level goal now. Now we got there.
Yeah, absolutely. I look forward to it.
Yeah, that's the follow-up on the first podcast. We call it like, Deepika part 2. And then it would be like, Deepika with 6-packs now.
I got to tell Urjita now. We got to come up with a plan.
Yeah. Now I'll text Arjita. I was like, hey, Arjita, next level is 6-pack, Deepika. So I need you to work on that. So it was lovely to have you on this podcast today, Deepika. Thank you for sharing your journey. Thank you for sharing everything, and really proud of you and proud of your achievement, and always encourage you to keep following your dreams, like, next level dreams. Let's go for it. 6-packs. Here we go.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was really nice talking to you today.
Absolutely, Deepika. Thank you very much. And you have yourself a good one.
You too.